You are listening to Inspired Caring with Michelle Magner, episode number 110. Hello, welcome to Inspired Caring. I'm your host, Michelle Magner. If you are caring for an older family member, this is the podcast for you. Each week, I bring insight, tips, inspiration, and strategies to help you care for the people that you love without losing yourself along the way. Having cared for both of my grandmothers, I've helped manage everything from hospital stays, households full of belongings, to navigating senior living and end-of-life care. And I've worked in senior living as a result of that experience, serving my residents and their families as they've been on this journey too. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope you enjoy this episode of Inspired Caring. Hello, what is going on? How are you doing? I have been thinking about when people refuse to get help. Like, we can see that they need help, but they don't want our help, right? One of the biggest struggles in our family, as we've helped various aging family members, was seeing that there was that decline and that something had to be done either in the home or maybe changing living environments, and our family member refused to do anything about it. They were adamant about not moving to senior living, adamant about not bringing any home health or companion care. It was a complete stalemate. And for myself, my husband, and my brother-in-law, my husband's brother, we all do varying degrees of project management in our careers. And so it was making us all very anxious to watch this unfold without a plan or action items in place. And we could see that the tasks were just compounding. I mean, when you're a project manager, you can see ahead, you can see the pitfalls, and there were no actions being taken. It was all very murky, and we agreed the situation was not good, but we were at that impasse. So, and all of this was compounded by our own personalities and how we each handle projects independently within our workplaces, right? And then there were the dynamics that the guys had their own relationship with their parents and each other. And then I'm not a blood relative, but an industry expert, and feeling deeply connected to my in-laws. So we had all of our own stuff. We're watching these people that we love just not doing so great and struggling with some of the basics. And then their world you could see it systematically shrinking down. Like, they stopped going on trips with people, family members, and eventually stopped going out. It was just really hard. My mother-in-law was living with dementia, and so we watched as this very involved, active, busy woman basically sat on the couch in the dark in the living room watching CSI, which she had always loved those shows, and then cowboy movies, which my father-in-law loved. She had never, I don't think, maybe I'm wrong, I don't think cowboy movies were her jam, but he was undergoing cancer treatment. So he was just, sitting next to her in the recliner, watching TV. Eventually, he was able to articulate that while he didn't have the energy to do the things he had always done, like laundry, cooking, and so on, he felt like he should still be able to do it. So he was reluctant to have someone into the house and watch them do something that he felt like he should be doing or, used to be able to do. And he didn't like the idea of paying someone to do something that he should be able to do. And they would just sit there in between tasks. And I will say that eventually, when home health was brought in, the woman that was coming in, there was some consistency to the care providers that came in, and it was really lovely. Like, it changed up the energy and dynamic for them in just a really nice way. And my mother-in-law really enjoyed her. And yeah, so it was just, I don't know, it ended up being really good. But there are 6 theories on why people won't seek assistance. And I'm going to go through each of these with you, but think it's also just really important to remember that we're just wired differently, right? We think differently, we behave differently. And the people that you're caring for have a lifetime of habits in their own processes. So I very just quickly want to touch on these 6 theories. And these are straight out of the Community Resources for Older Adults textbook from one of my classes, and Programs and Services in an Era of Change. It's the 4th edition by Robin Wacker and Karen Roberto. But again, this is a textbook for school. So I'm just going to go through these very quickly with you. So continuity theory is that it can be an attempt to preserve and maintain your internal and external structures. So you just want things to stay the same. And if a person is perceiving the past a certain way and has how they've handled that, they just want to kind of keep going along, hoping that they can keep going with their current strategies of managing things. So that's continuity theory. Social behavioral model is using services is a function of predisposing things like your age, race, marital status, gender, enabling, like income, transportation, awareness. All of these variables are part of the social behavior model. So everything that makes someone who they are, all of those identities, may prevent them from seeking external help and resources. Reactance theory is that sense of freedom and autonomy feeling challenged. When they feel threatened, then people are in a negative state. Attribution theory is really understanding, predicting, and controlling a person's environment. So if individuals assigned attributions to themselves and their external environment. Equity theory is, it just puts the balance of the relationship off balance. So they want to maintain equity. And if you're a child or a spouse and certain things have been done by certain people and then they cannot reciprocate, that doesn't feel very good, right? It's always so much better, feels so much better to be the helper than the person being helped. And then threat to self-esteem, of course, there's so many, we all have these egos and our self-esteem. And if they are feeling like they are being helped all the time, then that just doesn't feel good to their self-esteem. And if you have parents who their whole life, or a partner who their whole life has not been a planner, and somehow their life has generally worked out for them, it's really going to be hard to move the needle on getting them to make a list and a plan, right? They've never really had to do that, and it's always worked out. Or what if they haven't been planners and generally life has not worked out for them? Some people just resign themselves to the fact, well, those are the cards I've been dealt, and it's terrible, but that's it. That's my life. So they generally just don't worry about planning because they think things just never go really their way. So just thinking about the person that you're trying to help and looking at their life and how have they handled things. People can be very, very private. I mean, aren't you private? I'm private in my life. Our home, I think, operates fairly routinely. There would be no surprises if you walked in our door at any given time, but people's lives, as we decline in health, we just lose a lot of privacy. Have you been to a doctor's appointment lately with someone and you've learned all about their bowel movements and levels of sexual desire? Like, this stuff gets very personal, very fast. And so it can feel hard to open the doors to having someone in the home or making a big life change. So starting in an area that feels more approachable, like maybe a grocery drop-off or a meal kit service, can be a good step before we're just like all in having someone wash the skivvies. So typically, in my experience with my family members, and really with so many of the families that I've worked with over the years in senior living, there either tends to be a come to Jesus meeting where it's like the hammer is dropped and it's just like, this is just, we have to address this. Or there's an incident that leads to having to address things heads on, like a fall or hospital stay or something like that. So just, take a deep breath and remember that light enters through the cracks. So our goal is to open up thought processes and take next baby steps, because it's really hard sometimes to go from A to Z, but maybe we can get from A to B. So if it feels like you are on just solid ground, no budging, just remember, we're just looking for a little crack here. And be mindful of your energy, because I want to offer you that while you feel that there is a certain best way to proceed and do something, and partially the reason we want people just to get on with the bandwagon with us is that it's going to create less work for us in the long run, right? Like if you move now, then in the future, you will be settled in and things hopefully are great. And that will be less work for me down the road trying to manage that and a health crisis. But just again, being mindful of your energy, that convincing energy and being in this spun up space is also taking a lot of work on the front end. And you can handle this. However this plays out, you can handle it. So a lot of times we have this idea, we're trying to preserve ourselves on the front end to avoid a lot of energy on the back end if something happens, but we're using a lot of energy on the front end trying to convince or move the needle on something. So I really just want you to be mindful of that. So firstly, best I can tell, collecting information has never hurt anyone. So if your family member does not want to participate in that, you can collect that information yourself behind the scenes. Figure out what home health options are in your area, or delivery services, or senior living options, right? Getting that information, it's ideal and beautiful if we can all do it together. But if the needle is not moving, do it yourself. Start collecting information because you're the planner. I think something that is very important to keep in mind, for me in my come to Jesus meeting, we just really got to the point with two of the family members that the situation was simply unsustainable. And keep in mind that we can see it, but maybe it's not as evident to them. So simply stating the current trajectory is unsustainable. Like you can barely put your shoes on. You can barely make it to the couch. What do you think is going to happen next here? Because are you hoping to just feel better? Because I'm watching you experience this very slow but notable decline. So keeping those words, we don't want to be aggressive or offensive. It's just as an observer. That's the goal. I like the idea of removing the word should. So as part of that conversation, what if we remove the word should? How does everything change? If our feelings change about the situation? So if we're just looking at the facts and removing emotion, including judgment and self-judgment, remove the word should, like I should be able to change the sheets, right? We know the bed sheets have to be washed daily if they are soiled. We know nutritional food needs to be consumed once to twice a day. We know there has been one fall per week. So just sticking with the facts and letting this information hang out there and marinate. It takes two to tango, right? So if you say something and they get super defensive, do not go on the offense. Just sit and let them say their piece, then sit, okay? And just see what happens. Because if you've tried everything before, maybe this is something you haven't tried. I love the idea of pitching. What would you suggest your friends do in this situation? Because that can help take them out of their own head and their own circumstance and think about someone else. And if they are still in community with friends, like friend groups and church groups and all of that, the stuff is popping up all over the place. Like they're talking about it. Their friends are talking about it and they're talking about it. So it's just interesting. What would you advise a friend to do in this situation? And just see maybe if that can help you. Again, we're just looking for cracks. Get a crack. What do you think the worst case scenario is? Because oftentimes, like with one of my family members, I was asking, what do you think the worst case scenario is? And they basically said, well, I'll just die here. And I offered that's not the worst case scenario, right? The worst case scenario is you fall and you're incapacitated and then you can't get help and you are stuck and in maybe a worse health decline situation, like you hit your head or you have a stroke or you know, whatever those things are, that could be worse than what they're imagining. Like they think they're just going to wake up dead. That is maybe not the worst case scenario. So we're looking for compromise. So back to the worst case scenario, like my great aunt fell in her house and sat on the floor. I think it was like for over a day before a neighbor found her. And it really was the beginning of the end because it was a pretty bad situation. So your goal is, what compromises can we reach? Maybe a call button for help. What other tech can be in place? Like your goal right now is to just, again, look for the cracks. You are not necessarily trying to move the whole big needle and solve all the problems. You're just trying to create a crack to get a little light through. I hope this helps. And you are doing an amazing job. You're doing a great job. And I love you and I see you. And I look forward to being with you next week. Hey, you guys, I have a new offering for you that I am so pumped about. If you have any questions around senior living, I have created a product. It is about 15 different videos. They're short little videos, and they are going to go through all the ins and outs of senior living to get your questions answered. This is going to be what to look for. How do I know if it's the right place? When is it time to move? All the levels of care and what the experts want you to know. This is going to be available for a limited time at $57. It's normally $99 and it is currently on sale, discounted to $57. And that is going to be the case until September 14th. So just for the next 30 days or so, and then it'll go back up to $99. But I wanted to give this offer to you first because, you know, we're in this together. So it's called Illuminating Senior Living. And I will drop a link for that product in the show notes below.